Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be so much fun. I've decided to do a little swatch party of spicy neutrals. A subscriber of mine requested this video, and I had to actually ask her what she meant by spicy neutrals, but basically she meant ordinary colors that are just amped up a little bit. So I scoured my collection and I pulled out some really beautiful palettes with some really beautiful neutrals, so if you want to see them, stick around. The way that this originated was I had put a post on my community tab asking people if they liked a certain video I'd done and what some of their suggestions were for other videos. And Danielle Zadora responded, spicy neutrals. And then she added about anything with gray and silver, etc. That's probably going to come in a separate video. And then she finished that comment by saying how to make red and yellow look good together, cause all I see is ketchup and mustard. Okay, so a quick point on how to make red and yellow work together. Use orange. Put it as a tone between the two colors. You could lay down a red and buff it out with the yellow, and that'll create an orange ombre into yellow sort of effect. You could lay down yellow and deepen it with red and use orange to help bridge the gap between the lighter tones of the yellow and the deeper tones of the red. Use orange to work those two colors together, and you will probably no longer see just ketchup and mustard because now you have more of an ombre gradient effect. So that's my tip as far as red and yellow go. But yes, I had to ask her exactly what she meant by spicy neutrals, and this was her response. Spicy neutrals was coined by another content creator called Seeking Shifts, aka Riley. It's, quote, everyday shades but amped up, basically, end quote. Either duo or multi-chromes, but no crazy, loud, bold colors. Not sure what your indie or special singles collection looks like, but would really enjoy seeing some love given to more indie brands. They have amazing formulas without the mainstream pricing, usually. As far as a singles or special shades, I don't have any. I don't have any singles at all. I recently posted an eyeshadow palette collection tour, everything that I own as far as eyeshadow. I will link that above for you in the cards if you haven't seen it yet. I only have palettes, I don't have singles. So I pulled out a good handful of some really beautiful eyeshadow palettes, and we're gonna go through them and swatch some of these amped up spicy neutrals. I'm going to start with the Queen Bee palette from Colored Rain because this is actually what I'm wearing on my eyes today. I did not film today's eye look, but I will tell you how I achieved this look today. This was using the Queen Bee palette, and by the way, if today's eye look is looking a little bit rocky and faded or smudged, I have been wearing it for like 14 hours. It is the end of the day, and it's been a little bit of a frustrating day, so I'm just happy to sit in front of my camera and talk about eyeshadow. This palette, much like a bee, is small but mighty. It packs a punch. With the color story, the packaging's fantastic, but the color story is really vibrant and very, very pigmented. The shadows are incredible, but in today's video, we're going to talk about these spicy neutrals. So we have the shade Mind Your Business, and then the shade Unbelievable. Then we're going to put that right here. This is Mind Your Business, and then here is Unbelievable, and these are just so beautiful. You might look at them and think they're just, they're neutrals, right? The Unbelievable shade here is kind of an ordinary bronze, but it's actually really, really pigmented and so vibrant and bold. It has a lot of punch in it. This one right here, Mind Your Business, this is oh my goodness. I see gold, pink, and green. Hopefully you can see the shift on camera, but there are at least 3 colors in this shadow, and they're so vibrant and bold and impactful. Let me quickly detour for a moment and tell you what I did to create today's eyeshadow look. I started in the shade Honeycomb, and I put that in my outer crease and corner area. I dipped into the yellow Pollen in Love and put that in my inner corner, and then I used that, much like the red and yellow question from Danielle, I used this yellow to buff out this more orangey tone, and that's what I used to create all of my blending out over here. Then I deepened with a little bit of Bewitched in just a line, starting the outer crease and working down diagonally into my lashes, and I flared it out a bit into like a loose wing. I did not do an eyeliner today, so any wing that you see is from the Bewitched shade. And then I took Unbelievable, I put that over the rest of my crease area, and then I took Mind Your Business and I tapped that just at the inner corner as an inner corner highlight. And then on my lower lash line, I basically did the same thing. So I put this everywhere, put this on my inner half or so, deepened out the outer bottom corner, and then Mind Your Business was the inner corner highlight. That's how I achieved today's look. The Mind Your Business shade especially, the top one, is so pretty. In the Nomad Monteverde Cloud Forest palette, this is my favorite palette from Nomad. Now I of course love the bright, vibrant, neon, bold, very colorful, loud sorts of colors. However, for a spicy neutral, I think the shade up here called Hanging Bridges is perfect. In the pan, this the shadow looks like kind of a green brown, but when we swatch it, I'll put that right here. When we swatch this Hanging Bridges shade, it is green and brown and pink. And it's just such an interesting shadow. It really can transform whatever look you're putting it with. It pulls out the shadows in the multi-chrome. So if you're pairing it with pinks or purples, it's going to pull out the pink. If you're pairing it with browns, it's going to look more neutral, but then it's going to have this green shift. And if you're pairing it with greens or blues, it's going to certainly pull more green and pinky. It's a lovely companion for the rest of the palette because that palette is greens with a lot of pops of bold colors, and because this multi-chrome has at least 3 of those colors in them, you can use that shadow Hanging Bridges with any of the other mattes or even shimmers in the palette, and you get this really unique shift. It's very cool. Oden's Eye will be making a couple of appearances in this video, but we're going to start with the Norns palette. By the way, Norns was reformulated and repackaged in the new packaging from Oden's Eye with the little rectangular shaped pans with the corners cut off. I wish I had that, but I have this. It's okay. It's okay. It's newly formulated, so I am assuming that the 3 shades that I have a problem with in this palette, which are this one, and this one, I'm assuming that they're great now. I don't know. Haven't personally tried it. I think Heather Austin made a video comparing the 2. I would expect Angelica Nyqvist to as well. I don't know for sure. Check it out if you're interested, but Norns was updated and I'm sure it's fabulous. This is the old Norns. The spicy neutral in this palette, I think, is this shadow right here. It's called Optimism, and in the palette it just looks like a silver. To the eye, it's a little bit like, oh, okay, you know, it's pretty. But when you swatch it, it does have a lot of silver, obviously like a gray base. It's also got some purple in it, and this is another one of those shadows that's kind of transformative. When you pair it with pink, it's going to look more pink. When you pair it with blue or purple, it's going to pull more of those tones as well. It is possibly my favorite shadow in the Norns palette, and that genuinely surprised me because I figured for sure that one of the exciting colors on the bottom row would be a favorite, but no, this Optimism shade is amazing. Just because we're talking about Oden's Eye, let's pop into the Sea Talk palette when they collaborated with Lauren from Lauren May Beauty. Here's the shadow called Smoky Pearl. This is such a beautiful shadow. This is on the cool tone section of the neutrals, whereas this next column is warm tone. But this Smoky Pearl shade, I'm going to swatch it for you guys, of course, because this is a swatch party. And I'm going to show you how pretty it is. So here's Smoky Pearl. This is a really lovely color. I think it's a nice complement to the rest of the shadows in the palette because it can work with the cool tone, obviously, but it can also work with the warm tones, and it's a beautiful complement to the blue or purpley shadows in the palette, that strange green yellow that's in there as well. Does this have a shift? Yeah, it's got a lot of purple in it. It's like a soft lilac or a lavender, maybe a mauve base color, but then it also seems to have like a rose gold shift in it. It's super beautiful. I also love the name. I think Smoky Pearl is such a romantic sort of name. Like, I don't know, I expect to find that in a novel somewhere, but it's just a really beautiful color, beautiful tone, lovely shift, so sparkly and pretty, and it's a wonderful companion for the other shadows of the palette. Now onto a brand that is known for their sparkly shadows. Here's the Adept Plain Jane palette, the original. Now, this palette is full of all kinds of beautiful multi-chromes. Like, most people know what the inside of this palette looks like, and hopefully you're seeing some shifts in the colors. It's a little bit hard. My lighting's never the best. There are a couple of shadows in here that I think are more neutral, you know, like this one, these over here maybe. They actually have a lot of shifts in them. So here is the ACI 2. Here's the ACI 5. Sorry, I lost track. Here's the ACI 5. And I'll talk about these a little bit more in a moment. I just want to get them on my arm before I forget. And then here is the ACI 1. Again, any shadow in this palette is going to give you fantastic shift and color and sparkle. Just super high shine, very reflective, but also an extremely thin formula. It's a beautiful topper shade. It's a beautiful feature shade. It's not thick and emollient. It's not flaky. They're so pretty. So if we're looking at these shadows, this one up here, I'm gonna get myself all sparkly, you just watch. This one up here has kind of a rosy pink base, and I see some pink flecks in it, but it also has some little gold flecks as well, like a soft vintage gold, not too yellow. It's not a yellow that would clash with the pink. This next one, which I think was ACI 5, this one also has a bit of pink in it, and then it's got little bitty orange flecks in it, just a little bit, just a hint. And then this one down here at the ACI one, this is more of a true bronze, like a deep vintage kind of bronze or copper sort of tone. And in certain lights, I feel like I see little hints of a purpley kind of color. Maybe like a berry sort of flip. It's not too strong. This one is less multichromatic than some of the others in that palette, and honestly, some of the others that you're seeing in this video. But it is a beautiful neutral shimmer, but it's so sparkly, and it's not just an average traditional shimmer. None of the ones in Plain Jane are. From Sydney Grace, I have the Tropicolor palette when they collaborated with the Fancy Face, and in this one, I want to pull this shade right here. It's called Hellshire, and this one in the pan looks like a gray toned brown. When we swatch this one on the arm, it actually has kind of a pewter undertone to it. It's very cool toned. It also has a little bit of a purpley sort of hue, like a warm, cool toned, earthy sort of feeling to it. It is a really beautiful shimmer. The Sydney Grace quality is excellent. I'm hoping you guys can see these shadows. They're all so pretty. From Cosmic Brushes, I had pulled the Serenity palette thinking that one of the shadows in there was a little bit more duochromatic than it actually is. So instead I've got the Muse palette. And in this palette, I want to talk about this shade up here. It's called Ambient. To be honest, the last time I used this shadow, it almost ruined my look, but it had nothing to do with the shadow itself. It was just, it didn't really work with that look. But let's talk about this shadow. This is much deeper than a lot of these other ones that we're talking about. Here is Ambient, and it is a beautiful cranberry silver color. Look at that color. It is silver based, or is it cranberry based, or is it a red base, or is it a purple base? It's just a really interesting tone. I think in the pan it tends to look a little bit boring, but once you start to blend it out, you start to see all these different undertones. It's really beautiful, and it even has a couple little blue flecks in there as well. It's a very dimensional shadow. This ambient tone would be beautiful for like a deeper smoky eye. Oh my goodness, it'd be so pretty. One more palette from Oden's Eye. Here's the Merry Christmas palette from the 2022 Christmas release. This palette really honestly has several spicy sorts of neutrals, really interesting colors. I hope you can see some of the shifts that are going on here. I want to talk about two of them in particular. I'm going to pull Jingle Bell and Snowman. Jingle Bell actually reminds me kind of this shadow right below it, which is the first one from the Queen Bee palette. Although in the pan it looks like a green, but when you look a little bit closer, you see it's got more of a gold base, but then it has a lot of green in it as well. And then the shade Snowman in the palette looks like just kind of a brownish sort of shimmer, like a light brown perhaps, but look at all the colors that you see in this now. I see pink, blue, some white, some green. Do you see all the shifts in this swatch? Oh my goodness. The Oden's Eye multichromes, I love them because I love the formula. They are so light, they're so easy to work with. You get beautiful color payoff, but all of that comes in just like the Adept formula, something that is light, very easy to work with, soft, creamy. It's not flaky, it's not emollient, it's not oily. It's just a beautiful, soft, and very impactful formula. In the Palettopoly palette from Ace Beauté, there's a shade over here called VHS. Each time I use this shade, I'm kind of impressed by it actually. It's got sort of an interesting tone. In the pan, it looks like a soft gray, green, silver-ish sort of color. It's weird looking in the pan, and you think, oh, what am I going to use that for? Let me swatch it for you. Here is that VHS shade. This is a brown, bronze, greeny sort of silver shift. It has a lot of different colors in it in a very interesting and unexpected way. Like when you look at the pan, you don't see all of these colors, but then you swatch it out and you use it and you realize that it's actually quite dimensional. And again, like so many of these shadows, when you put them with an eye look, depending on what colors you're putting them next to, they're gonna pull different tones, and that makes them so much more interesting, so much more versatile. And then finally, in the Anastasia Beverly Hills Nouveau palette, this palette has a couple, I mean, it's mainly neutral, but except for that pop of purple, but the neutrals in here are kind of different. They're a little bit warm toned and they're a little bit cool toned. I'm gonna pull this shade right here because honestly, when I use the neutrals in this palette, I'm usually surprised by the payoff that I get. I think that they perform really beautifully, but this Wings shade surprises me. I'm putting it up here because I'm running out of space and I can't lift my arm up that high. This Wings shade it's kind of a gray-green base. It's a little bit sagey, and I think it has a bit of a little hint of purple in it, which makes sense with the blue and purpley tones of the other colors in the palette. It's kind of a cross between warm and cool tone. It's a very interesting shadow. When I use it on my eyes, it tends to end up pulling a little bit more green leaning. definitely got some sage in it, and it's like a weird cool sage but warmer gold kind of color with a bit of a light cool brown undertone. In my lighting right now it looks more gold, but every time I use it, it ends up looking more green. It's kind of a puzzle. There you go, guys. These are all of the spicy neutrals that I could find in my collection. Many thanks to Danielle for giving me this video idea. I really enjoy it when you guys give me suggestions, because not only does it tell me what you want to see, obviously as my viewers I want to cater to your tastes, but it also helps me look at my collection through new eyes, gives me a different perspective, a different lens. I really enjoy hunting through my collection for things which fit under a certain umbrella or category. It helps me appreciate all of the beautiful shadows I have. It gives me new ideas. It is so much fun, and I really appreciate you guys interacting. Thank you so much for being with me here today and for taking your time out of your day to watch my video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more. Check the description box for lots of other content and suggestions, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye!